Hello, my loves. This is Johanna Burkhardt. I am a multidimensional channel, teacher, healer, and author. And I am obsessed with all things metaphysical, esoteric, galactic, and of course, the healing journey. And I'm here to share my stories, my wisdom, and my teachings about being human in the illusion that we call reality. Welcome to Cosmic Blonde. Hello, my loves. I have been known most of my professional career as someone who is overly transparent. And I say overly because that's what I hear, right? I am more transparent than most people who are online today. And I think sometimes that's a double-edged sword. But here we are. And while I have kind of made an effort to pull back a little bit what I share, it, it's it's a love-hate relationship with me because when I come out the other side of something, I almost feel compelled to talk about it because when I'm going through it, I often wish that there was someone that could be a guidance for me. But oftentimes I find myself in a position of blazing the trail instead of walking behind another who is blazing it, right? Not that I haven't had both experiences, but most of my experience has been I've been the one blazing the trail and going first. And if you're familiar with human design, I am a 1-3 emotional manifester. So 1-3s in general, not to mention the manifester classification, if you will, right? We got to hold on to these titles loosely, are known for having to go first, and kind of being that trailblazer, being the one who sees a vision, right? The visionary, seeing the thing that is the potential, seeing the path when everybody else just sees trees. And so because of that, I find myself in these positions to where, yes, it's vulnerable for me to share. Sometimes it's humiliating. Sometimes I want to hold back, but at the same time, there's a freedom in saying, like, hey, this is what I've just been through. And I want to give you whatever wisdom I have received as I'm walked through this fire and got to the other side. Because it may be the very thing that helps somebody, right? Or even gives them enough hope to stand up and keep going. And that's kind of where I've been. And I talked a little bit about some of this in the 3-part series with Christine. However, I want to talk about it from a different perspective. And that's just that over the last 2 months, literally 2 months, we're at the 2-month mark today, as I record this, has been the most confusing, discombobulating, life altering, Twilight Zone type of energy. And I would love, love, love to blame Pluto. And the fact that it went back into Capricorn, because that's exactly when everything started to shift for me. It was probably at least a week into that shift. Um, and I'm sure it has some type of influence, right? Because it was at the anaretic degree, which is the most intense. I am a late degree Cancer. My late degree Cancer is not just my sun sign, it's my Venus sign, which is all about my love and money. And guess what got disrupted? My love and my money. Well, and a lot of other things. Let's just be honest. Like, it's interesting how the collective, like we just witnessed the Tyson fight. Like, if you're someone who follows any of those kind of sports, Mike Tyson, like the legend, just fought Jake Paul. And we all know that, you know, we all knew he wasn't going to get knocked out. But if you ever saw him back in his prime, or if you watched UFC, or if you watched boxing, you know how that person, like, they just keep getting back up and just keep getting knocked the fuck out, but they don't stay down. They get back up and like those cartoons where they see the little swirly lines around their head and the stars and the birds, like, because they're so fucking out of it. Dude, that was me. That's been me over the last 2 months. Every time I stand back up and try to reorient myself, I was getting knocked back down and I was getting hit from all sides to the point to where I was like, I don't even know, dude. I don't even know what's going on. I don't know what's happening. And so I kind of want to talk about this because a couple of days ago, I woke up. I'm going to say it was Saturday morning. It was a Saturday morning. I woke up to clarity. And I have been asking God, and I'm going to use the word God in today's podcast. Normally, I will use universe, I'll use spirit, the cosmos, but I'm going to be very intentional and use the word God. So you change that word out as you need fit. But I have been praying to God and asking God for clarity, for guidance. Show me what this is teaching me. Show me what I need to do. Show me what I need to say. What do I need to understand? What can I do to get back into alignment? And I have heard nothing but silence. Ooh, I get a little emotional saying that because one of the first things I realized when I woke up was that I had a very large God wound, a very large God wound, which is interesting because I never really believed in the word God. Now I can say it comfortably because I understand that I am God. This microphone that I'm speaking into is God. The chair that I'm sitting in is God. That everything is an aspect of God making up the whole, right? If we look at the Big Bang Theory, it's the whole fragmented infinitely to experience itself. And that's exactly what happens, right? We go through this huge separation to learn and experience ourselves through the mirror of people, places, and things in all time, space, and different realities. And so now I can comfortably say the word God, but before I think I've kind of classified God in the traditional religious belief that it's a man in the sky who's handing out miracles to those who are worthy and deserving of it. And that may be a religious belief that was just in my DNA from my lineage because I did not grow up in a religious family. But I think mine came from like, what did I do? I remember I even used to say to myself and to people, like, I don't know what I did in a past life. I don't know what kind of evil I was to deserve this life. Like a child that's sexually and physically and mentally and emotionally abused and neglected and abandoned. Like any human being with a heart who sees a child going through that, or a child with cancer, or a child who dies from some crazy thing, questions their faith, questions God, especially when they're so innocent. So growing up, I always classified myself as spiritual. I always believed in aliens. I loved Sylvia Brown. I loved mediumship. I loved all that, though I never really understood my connection to it. I just resonated with it, right? And as as a kid, I did go to church from time to time with friends and their families, but I think even at a very young age, I felt abandoned by God. And that ties into what we're going to talk about today. So I want to not get too far off track. And I'm not going to go into too many details about what I went through, other than to say, um, everything was great. Beginning of the year, I did my hard reset. I've talked about this a million times, so I'm not going to talk about it too much on these podcasts. But it literally rewired my subconscious, and it put me into the flow and allowed me to manifest everything that I was desiring in a very short amount of time. And I've spent majority of this year in the flow. And what does that mean? What does it mean to be in the flow? What does it mean to be in alignment? When you're in the flow, when you're aligned, you are in uncertainty. Let me say that again. When you are in the flow and in alignment, you are in uncertainty. You are not in comfortability. Uncertainty does not equate to suffering either. Uncertainty is I am being and living in the present moment. I am living and being in what's in front of me to be looked at, to be worked on, to be whatever. It's not about control. It's not about your ego deciding what you're going to do and when. It's your hands are off the wheel, and my hands were off the wheel. I was doing what I felt guided to do when I felt guided to do it. And it led me down the most beautiful path. Did I know what was coming next? No, but I was okay with it. I wasn't anxious, though I've never really been a super anxious person anyway. I wasn't in my head. I wasn't over focusing or over dwelling on things. My nervous system was very regulated. I was surfing. I was flowing with the highs and the lows, and they weren't as high or as low, right? And that's what you want. That's the goal. You don't want the extreme highs and lows. That is us in a activated nervous system, and one that we can get addicted to, right? We get addicted to the highs and we get addicted to the lows because remember, this is the planet of feeling. And in the planet of feeling, we feel at a depth that we can't feel anywhere else. This is why we always come back to Earth. There's no other, I've been shown and told that there's no other realities where we feel at the depth that we feel here. And so oftentimes that's why we get addicted to the pain, or people get addicted to adrenaline or get addicted to drugs, right? They're chasing the high. Um, and with every high is a low, right? So you can only go as low as you can go high. So I mean, if however low you might be right now or you've been in your life, you can achieve the equal high, right? Because you are still expanding your bandwidth to hold energy. It's just you choosing what you're holding. And oftentimes in the high, we get so ungrounded, or we don't feel grounded that we do something to sabotage and bring ourselves back down to reality instead of just walking on air, right? I think people misunderstand grounding for feeling stability when it's really about just being in your body. And so if that means you're walking on air, you're walking on air. If you can't feel the ground beneath you, fly. So in this time, or around the beginning, middle of September, everything shifted for me. I was in a relationship for a few months with a man, and I talked about this with Christine. He was not on my bingo card. I was not even manifesting love. I wasn't. And he showed up. Um, Complete Southern gentleman, very much had a secure attachment at the time, made me, allowed me, let me say that, not made, he allowed me to be in my divine feminine. And this is something that I have been actively trying to heal for a while. And I have been, in the past, been seeking relationships that were the man led, where it made me, where I was felt safe, where I felt secure, where I could be fun and flirty and relaxed. A man who took away my masculine responsibilities. And this man did it. Like he refused to let me pick him up. Or to meet him. He wanted to pick me up at my door. He did all the things. He coddled me, which I know a lot of women don't like, but my love language is physical touch. I want to be held. I want to be babied by a man. I want to be treated with gentleness and love and care and like I am precious. But I also want a man who is tough and who is very masculine and who can protect me, who will stand up for me, who isn't afraid to stand in the line of fire for me. And that is something that you exude from you, and it shows up in your effort, right? And this man did all of those things. And we had a whirlwind romance. We faced a lot of hard things right away. We both moved through them very well. And I was like, I'm going to marry this man. And then he had his head injury and everything changed. In that week that he was in the hospital, I was in such a state of fear, and I opened myself up so wide and my nervous system got so dysregulated. And then when he got out, I still wasn't completely there because you just don't know how these things are going to be. But I felt good about where we were until we were no longer. And I understand, and I hope and pray that this man finds his way. He, first of all, that he heals, because a brain injury is no joke, and it does change who you are, and it does take a long time to heal. But two, I hope that we find our way back to each other. If it's meant to be, it will. But that was the start of everything starting to kind of fall apart, right? That was the him having the head injury was the first hit. Him and I breaking up was the second. Um, I started taking hits to the amount of income that I was making. And then it just became a domino of things happening, things going wrong, things breaking. My debit card got turned off again for no reason. Like literally, the bank cannot tell me why. They just canceled my card randomly. Money that was owed to me, like people's defaulted on their payments. It was like, it's just every which way, right? I started to get into a flow a few weeks ago, and then I ended up in the emergency room and ended up hospitalized and needing emergency surgery. Like my car keys got lost and I had to replace the key fobs. It's just like no matter what I did, I stood up, I got knocked back down. I stood up, I got knocked back down. And I have, like I said in the other podcast, I'm a whack-a-mole. I will keep getting back up. I'm resilient as fuck. Sometimes I may wobble, I may crawl, I may be crying while I get up, but I will get up. And even when I don't want to get up, I will get up. I will. When this relationship ended and I was able to finally surrender and go through the healing that I needed to go through, I realized that what I was truly in love with was who I was with him. And I wanted to, and have asked Spirit multiple times, how can I embody my divine feminine in the way that I did with him, or without a man who's providing that masculine structure? And I had thought that I had done all the healing that was needed on my divine masculine. Because when I awoken and realized that I had, and I'm going to kind of go all over the place for a second, so stay with me. The God wound, which is the wounded masculine. When you have a God wound, when you feel abandoned by the universe and you are in a hyper independence and you feel like you have to do everything on your own and that you have to hustle and that you have to overgive and that you have to do and that nobody's there for you and everybody leaves you and that you can't rely on anybody, that is a fucking God wound. Hear me when I say that. It is a God wound. It is the wounded masculine. I worked really hard to heal my wounded masculine. And what that means is when I did, I started to the process of embodying my divine masculine. Your divine masculine is very similar to boundaries and energetic and physical. But there's a missing component to this that I think we don't really talk about. And it was brought to my attention on Saturday morning when I awoke to that clarity. Was like, hey, you've fallen off in this area a little bit and you need to get back to it because this is what is going to help you um, to stay in the consciousness of faith. It's going to help you to feel safe when you are going through these trials and tribulations. So, what does divine masculine look like? Divine masculine looks like when you are self motivated, when you are self disciplined. Now, in my 20s and even early 30s, I was motivated by men and by money. And sometimes by anger, right? Which I also put in the classification, I put that in the men category anyway. It was either I was doing it for revenge, I was doing it because I wanted their attention, or I was doing it to make money. And I was never just motivated because I was worth the effort of treating my body a certain way, working out, doing mental health things, doing things that financially benefited me. All the things that I were doing was because there was something, a carrot dangled in front of me. And if that's where you are, listen, awareness is everything. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. You are worthy and you deserve the effort that you put into yourself. And if you're only putting effort into yourself or trying to look good or trying to make money to impress a man or to gain something, you're putting your power outside of you. So in 2017, actually, it was probably 2016, but I talk about this in my book, how I ran my first ever 40 days. And my first ever 40 days was me learning how to heal and embody my divine masculine by creating a structure for me, motivated by me, disciplined by me to do certain things that I knew were in my best interest. Like, for example, I did a 40 days of no alcohol, no sugar, daily meditation, daily workout, daily journaling. Like I set it up with like calling like points throughout the day. Like there were certain things I did in the morning, there were certain things I did in the afternoon, there's certain things I did in the evening. And it can be as much or as little as you want, but these are points of comfortability, points of predictability, and that um, they create that predictability to where the body and the nervous system and the ego can let go and feel safe because it knows at a certain time of day certain things are going to happen, and that allows you to enter into the flow. The divine masculine is also someone that has the ability to ask for help. The divine masculine is also somebody who doesn't overreact, right? They stand in their power, they respond instead of react. They don't do things they don't want to do. They are able to say no. But again, it goes beyond when we think about like be the partner that you want to seek, that you are seeking. It's more than taking yourself out on dates. It's more than, buying yourself gifts. It's more than taking yourself on trips. It is self-motivation. It is self-discipline. It is self-composure. And over the last 2 months, I have not been able to maintain that. And I can own that and I can say that. And that was the clarity was, hey, like you have to want this enough. And that's a key word right there, because I have been saying on repeat, I want someone who wants me. I want someone who chooses me. And my whole journey from 2017 on, especially from 2019 on, was choosing me. I had the awareness that I have been choosing other people, right? Ex people pleaser. I've been choosing other people out of fear of abandonment, out of fear of rejection. My abandonment wound is fucking huge, bro. I mean, it happened at such a young age. And it didn't just be physical abandonment from my mom. It was emotional abandonment from my mom. It was emotional abandonment from my father, who I'm coming up, as I record this, I'm days away from the anniversary of his death. He would have been gone 9 years this year. And while he was the greatest man in my life, and he is somebody that I have put on a pedestal and that I miss so much, he did emotionally abandon me for a bottle of Jim Beam or whatever alcohol he had moved on to. And he did so because of his own pain. That was his way. Like that's where he was in his life. He couldn't face his own emotions. If you can only be emotionally available if you're emotionally available for your own emotions, right? So he was not. And I understand why. That's where his alcoholism came from. And that's what killed him. Got off track a little bit. But when you spend most of your childhood with abandonment and neglect wounds, that shit infiltrates everything in your fucking life. And it makes it hard. And a good part of my life, I did the same thing my parents did. I drank my problems away. I shopped my problems away. I used relationships to distract me from my problems. Y'all, I've been married 3 times. Like it's obvious that I was running from myself. So when you embody your divine masculine, you stop running. You stop running. You stand, you face, you create the space to hold the energy that you need to hold for yourself. And this is something that I pride myself on being pretty dang good at. And I've taught many courses and work with some amazing, beautiful souls in mentorship who have gone on to change lives of their own. And so I know that I'm capable, but I think I just got so discombobulated by being hit so many times in a row that I just fell off. And that's okay because I'm back. I'm back. And I'm back into creating a structure and committing myself to that structure, holding myself accountable, having discipline without anybody else. Like I thought about rerunning my recalibration experience as a way of holding myself accountable. And I thought, you know what? I don't need to do anything to keep myself accountable other than to just do it. Because here's the thing, I could go on and not do something. Who's going to know? Nobody's looking. I'm fucking looking. I don't want to live that way where I'm only going to be on if someone's looking or someone's holding me accountable. I want to know, I want me so bad. I want me and I choose me so deeply that I'm going to know. I'm going to know. And the day that I don't discipline myself, the day I don't hold myself accountable is the day I'm abandoning myself again. And I have to pull myself up by my bootstraps right now and say, no, we're going to do this. It's hard, but choose your fucking hard. Choose your hard. It can be hard to be disciplined and you having to keep yourself accountable to have a structure that helps you feel safe and stable while you're moving through trials and tribulations. Or you can just get ping-ponged around and swatted around and continue to abandon yourself and just expand that wound even more. And so that's where I am now as I'm working on healing and returning to the healing process of my divine masculine. And I'm going to bring it back to God for a second because um, oftentimes when we feel in that deep despair or we feel things are in our life are unbearable, when all you see is obstacles and limits, closed doors, with every prayer and every conversation with your guides and God and your angels, and you feel nothing's coming back but silence. In this moment, this is when we're being tested the most. This is when our faith is being tested the most. And what I will tell you is, when it came to the money part, um, there has because of my rewiring my brain and doing my hard reset, the subconscious undertone, even when things looked bleak and dire, was you're going to be okay. And they have been. I have received random money from people, checks from closed bank accounts from like 7 years ago. I've had just random things showing up that have supported me. I have had ways and means showing up that I never would have even considered or thought of. And it's because of that subconscious undertone that whatever happens, I'm going to be okay. Where I struggled with faith, where I felt the energy of desperation was in letting go of the dating apps. So after everything went down with him and I was so shattered and so heartbroken. Um, I got back on the dating apps pretty quickly. And I remember speaking to a mentor and the guides telling him he's going to come back to you. You guys are not done yet. Trust, have faith. Surrender, Johanna, surrender. You guys are not done. This is a very karmic relationship. And it's an important one. But I was so hurt I couldn't. or I chose not to, I should say, because I was capable, but I didn't do it. And I have been super blessed with having amazing first dates with amazing men, and even some that have gone to second and third dates. And just because I hadn't found my person yet, I've been blessed with amazing dates up until the last two, which were horrendous. And I may or may not do a podcast on them just because it's like so wild, the things that happened. But at the same time, they happened for me. I kept getting these messages to postpone, like to turn off the dating apps, to just be, to just allow. And I would do it. And like within 48 hours, I would turn them back on because I was so desperate to feel that way that I felt again. And I was having a hard time doing it for myself because I wasn't honoring my divine masculine, right? I was having a hard time being in that feminine energy. I was in that feminine energy when I met him, by the way, because of that divine masculine structure and accountability that I had created for myself. Um, I wasn't doing the thing. And I kept asking myself, like, why can't I let this go? Why can't I turn off the dating apps? And that desperation was, I can only equate it to an analogy of you don't know what something tastes like until you taste it. And then once you taste it, it can ignite every sensory in your body and make you feel so euphoric. And you can fear never having it again. You don't know what you've lost, right? You don't know what you're missing until you've had it. And now I've had it. And I was so afraid of never getting it back again that I became desperate to seek it instead of desperately seeking me. And I got off course. I got knocked off course. And I talked about that before, how I got knocked off course. And then I felt shame for feeling desperate and thinking, oh God, now I'm calling in desperate men. And the truth is, when we feel desperate, this is when we are calling God closest to us. Now, when you feel that, this is when also separation can come in, right? Dark, evil, the ego, whatever you want to call it. When you're in that energy of desperation, it's not a sign of weakness. It's evidence. It's evidence that we were meant to connect to something greater than ourselves, but it can also be the thing that separates us from the thing that's greater than ourselves. So when we feel desperate, we oftentimes fall to our knees in prayer, right? We get closer to God, and we're in what I like to call beaten into submission. Life beats you over the head until you're fucking just on your knees going, okay, fuck it, I quit fighting. And I wasn't fighting with the money situation. I was supported. I was fighting with the relationships and wanting to be loved instead of loving me, wanting to feel that way instead of providing that structure for me and creating that environment for me. And it's funny because, honestly, like think about I'm always attracted to broken people, but God is attracted to the brokenhearted. And I think it's because they're what you are seeking is seeking you, right? And when you're broken, you're seeking for solace, you're seeking for something bigger than you to help and fix you. And so when we seek broken men or broken women or broken relationships, it is us seeking ourselves, but we're doing it outside of ourselves. I realized in my third marriage that I was seeking to fix broken people, and not just marriages and boyfriends, but friendships. I sought out those who I could fix, who I could take care of, who I could pay for things. All my relationships became conditional, transactional. They became where I overgave, right? And in fact, in my whole entire life, I think I've only had maybe two friends that have actually flown out to see me. And not to mention, I haven't had any family. No family has ever flown out to see me when I moved away. It's always been about me. I've always been the one who has put in the effort to see someone, to create a plan. Um, and honestly, it wasn't until my best friend that I experienced a different type of relationship. But I'm not doing that anymore. Like I'm literally at this point where it's like I'm done with those types of relationships. I'm done with them. And I'm going to let them all fall, you know? And I'm going to stop putting in the effort. I'm going to be the one who stops buying all the things for people and going out of my way to do all these things. Now, if it's something that feels good to me and I have no, it's filling my cup up to do it, fine. But what happens is I do that a lot. And then when I don't, when I, after months and months of overgiving and whether it's my time, my energy, or gifts or whatever, when I see there's a deficit in what I'm receiving, then I become resentful. And so for right now, I need to focus on me and I need to be selfish and self-centered. And honestly, I'm going to say this, I've said it before, but you're not supposed to be someone else-ish and you're not supposed to be centered on somebody else. Those words have been given a negative connotation. And so if you believe being selfish or self-centered is a bad thing, we do not resonate with each other because it's not. You can be selfish and self-centered and still consider other people. So people who don't consider other people are just inconsiderate. We're not supposed to be centered on somebody else. But I need to be focused solely on me. I'll never be inconsiderate to another person, but I'm not going to overgive. I'm going to close down. I've already closed off my dating apps. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop dating. It just means I'm not seeking um, on the online dating apps in the way that things have been before. I'm going to take a break. And I will say that during this time, I did feel abandoned by God. I'm going to kind of go back to where I was. Because I was like, why are you making me do this alone? Why aren't you bringing my person? Why did you bring him and then take him away from me? I just don't understand. So I felt a little abandoned by God, but then I realized that that was just my abandonment wound and that that was me abandoning my own divine masculine. It was me abandoning myself. And I also had to realize that his silence was not his abandonment. And I have told several people that I felt blocked, I felt delayed. But honestly, in the past, anytime there has been a delay or a redirect, I've always been grateful when I like in the end, right? There's a Garth Brooks song. Sometimes you thank God for unanswered prayers, right? We don't know that it's a blessing until we do. And so now I understand that his silence, or what I feel like is his silence, his inability to answer me or to help me is just a message of trust and faith and divine timing. It's not that he's abandoned me. It's not him denying me. It's just divine timing. And as I record this today, while nothing in my life has really changed, right? I literally was still getting railed yesterday by things. I have the clarity now and I know what to do. I have taught in many of my courses and in mentorship how to work in your divine masculine. And I know how to do it well. Now that I've seen it, now I have to take action on it. And that's what you're meant to do. That's inspired action. So now I've seen it, I have to choose different. And so from that day on, I was like, I'm going to create a structure and I'm going to stick to it and I'm going to be disciplined and I'm going to be accountable to me. I don't care if anybody else knows. I will know. And so if you're somebody who's been going through it lately, one, I want you to know you're not alone. Um, there's no rhyme or reason for the things that have happened to me. But what I can tell you is your frequency is what you frequently see. And for the last 2 months, what I have frequently seen is delays, obstacles, limitations, things breaking. And that just means that I'm about to go into another level. When things break, that's actually a good sign, even though it's annoying because it's expensive. At least it has been for me. But it means that I'm breaking out of the container and I'm expanding. So just know that if you're resonating with this podcast, if you're going through it, you're not alone. Have solace in the fact that God doesn't take anything from you or give you anything that isn't serving you. And use the silence that you feel or the denial that you feel from him as a delay of divine timing, and allow this time to be the thing that strengthens your faith muscle and resilience within yourself. And for the love of God, surrender. Surrender so deep, deeper than you've ever surrendered before. And I promise you, the sun will come out again, and you will find your power, and you will find your strength, and you will know that it wasn't for nothing. I love you, and I will see you in the next episode. Hey, thanks for listening. This episode was brought to you by JohannaBurkhardt.com, where it's time to defy the limits of your mind and step into your multidimensional mastery. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. See you next time.